Hey, everybody, and welcome to another week of Crunching Your Growth. And I'm your host, Phil Masiello. Every founder has heard the advice at some point: hire great people, get them into the right seats. But what happens when everyone at the table is talented and the team still can't communicate, collaborate, or make decisions? So today's guest believes that the problem is not always talent. Very often it's compatibility. So we're going to talk today with Jessica Michelle Baker, the founder of EQIQs, a relationship intelligence platform designed to help organizations make better decisions about hiring, partnerships, leadership, sales, and team development. And I actually have a lot to say about this. She's not, because I do have one, and I wrote about this, and I don't know if I talked about it on the show, about one bad experience where with having a co-founder who was totally incompatible, and but we'll get into that later. But her career has spanned finance, consulting, technology, marketing, entrepreneurship, giving her a front row seat in the enormous cost of putting brilliant people into relationships that simply do not work. So EQIQ combines 21 personality and behavioral frameworks to answer a practical question: how well will these people actually work together? And so today we're going to talk to her and we're going to explore the hidden cost of poor compatibility, why one personality test is not enough, and how relationship intelligence can help founders build stronger, more scalable companies. So, but before we talk to her, I have one video to run for you that we talked about it before. We built this AI platform, Trellios. I think it could benefit so many people that we don't use, that we can't satisfy as an agency because of either cost, or they don't have enough money, or they're not at the right time for it. So just pay attention. It's only 30 seconds long. So
it's late and you're still running your own marketing all by yourself. Strategist, writer, designer, analyst, all of it falls on you. There's a better way. This is Trellios, your AI marketing team. Setup takes minutes. Just tell it who you are and drop in your website. Trellios instantly studies your site, your market, and your competitors. Then it builds your strategy, a full SWOT, your strengths, gaps, and biggest opportunities laid out. From that, it recommends a custom 90-day quick wins campaign, the exact moves to grow built around your SWOT. You stay in control, review it, and approve the brief with a single click. Then your AI team gets to work. A chief marketing officer directs a full roster of specialists, one for every job. They produce weeks of on-brand content, written, scheduled, and ready to publish. And a live dashboard shows you exactly what's working, in real time. Your marketing finally runs itself, so you can breathe. Trellios, your AI marketing team. Start your free trial today.
So, hello, Jessica, and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to come on.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Why don't you take us back, because you've had an interesting background, an interesting sort of path to where you are today. Why don't you take us back to that? Give us a little flavor of, who you are, what you do, what you're all about, and how you got here.
Okay, I will. Yeah, no, I guess maybe I'll work backwards. I've always been kind of fascinated by how, even the smartest people can make, consequential mistakes when it comes to understanding others. My career has essentially taken me through, finance, technology, marketing, consulting, and obviously here I am with entrepreneurship. And across every setting, I kept seeing the same very expensive, costly pattern that was happening where, organizations would evaluate skills and experience, but then they often don't understand, how people communicate, how they make decisions, how they handle conflict, how they work together under pressure. And that's essentially what became my inspiration for EQIQs. Essentially, we're, like you were saying, but we're patented. We have a patent out that is around the methodology and algorithm that connects people using behavioral science and psychometrics so that people can better understand themselves and essentially those around them and their personal relationships and dynamics and their work. And, essentially, my thought process behind it was I found that when there's assumptions being made, there is usually misunderstanding. So by adding more dots to, the analysis of a person and kind of better understanding them, then we're able to communicate better, hopefully have better relationships, and which obviously better relationships at home and work translates to a better quality of life.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that you're 100% correct in that businesses don't, I think, evaluate correctly how others sort of make decisions and interact. They especially corporate, they expect everybody to be very similar and be very much the same, and it's different. And I've had, a couple of experiences in this kind of world. One was I had stores, retail stores in Washington D.C. It was a company that, and we built the first meal site online, and we got acquired by a supermarket chain,
Oh.
and I had to go and work for them. And I admittedly am not a very good employee because I think differently, right? I don't go by the same. And every retailer in the world has a Monday morning meeting, and they look
Mm.
at the sales results and they look at, all by store. And in the first Monday morning meeting that I went to, I was looking at the same data that everybody else was, and they're talking about sales dollars and things like that, and average check and average sale. And I said, you're looking at the wrong metrics here. And they looked at me and like, I said, you're losing customers. Your customer counts are down across the board. I said, so you can keep raising prices and that will get your average sale up and that will get your sales dollars up, but you're losing customers. You need to figure out why you're losing customers. You shouldn't be
Mhm.
losing customers. Is it a competition thing? It is. And literally the 30 men sitting around a table, mind you, which is the first flaw because mom pretty much makes the decisions about groceries. The 30 men making those decisions sat there staring at me like I had three heads. And I thought, it's how I look at business. I look at am I growing customers? Because I can always bluff sales dollars. I can always bluff average sale, but you can't bluff losing customers.
Mhm. So, and then how did those 30 people around you respond to you? Were
Oh
they?
my God. It was the brutal. I had to do a 2 year earnout. It was the worst 2 years of their lives and mine.
Yeah.
And they treated me as if I was sort of a freak show, because I didn't understand how they, viewed things. And it wasn't until the last 6 months, the, the company was owned by a parent company, and the parent company got a new CEO. He came in, evaluated this, and tore out the entire senior management team because, again, he said, you guys are looking at the wrong things. And he brought in all new people, and the new CEO that he brought in I could relate to because he was a smart guy. And so the last 6 months were pretty good, but I didn't want to stay there. There was no way. I'm not a good employee. I don't want to be a good employee. It's just not good for me. It's not a healthy environment.
Yeah, it wasn't your, fundamental of how you like to go about your day, right? And then
No,
that's kind of like what we do. We take in, even if you have the skill sets, how do you perceive the world? How do you take in information? What motivates you? Those things aren't on your resume,
no.
right? So, and if you just think about, you know, engagement of employees, kind of like what was happening, at that company. I guess Gallup put out their latest global data, and it basically said that they estimate $10 trillion in lost productivity due to low engagement, which is quite a lot and a valuable part of business that people are just not realizing is extremely expensive to their business.
Yeah, I've seen it. I think that, people, the way I view corporate America, and I view it from two different ways. One, being inside of it a couple of times for short stints, but also from the agency side having to deal with it. And what I think the biggest flaw is everybody is afraid of losing their job, so nobody wants to do anything that's risky because
Hmm.
they don't want to lose their job, and they
They
don't
don't want to
want
rock the boat.
They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to be, they don't want to be seen. They just sort of want to do the job that's expected of them. And I just think that that's an awful, awful culture. And it's not just one company. It's everywhere. And it's an awful culture because you can never progress a company like that. And that's why companies get bloated, in my opinion. That's why companies get bloated. That's why companies stop innovating. That's why companies can't innovate. That's why they wind up, buying startups and things like that because they can't innovate. But then they bring that startup mentality in
Hmm.
when they acquire them, and they can't handle it because it's so counter to how they operate that those entrepreneurs wind up leaving even after they do their 1 or 2 years or whatever they have to do.
Yeah, and that could be, they could be the best minds that bring about that change that's absolutely needed, kind of like what you were doing at that company that you were speaking about, right? If they had actually been innovators or receptive even to constructive feedback and even considered it and started looking at the numbers, then, it would have been a salvageable situation. Instead, they were thinking very short term, right? And it ended up costing their job anyway.
Oh
So,
yeah, it
you
always
just,
does. It always does.
yeah, yeah,
Eventually it catches up with you. You know.
exactly. I mean, I could definitely give you multiple stories around that too. So, you know, it's very interesting that how culture, company culture can vary so much from one place to another, and just how well feedback is received and taken into place, and who that feedback is being received from. Like maybe I guess I can't remember which study it was, but they did a study on 5-year olds, which were considered like creative geniuses. And I'm sure I should have looked it up beforehand, but I guess it didn't come to mind. But they were considered creative geniuses. And then, throughout school, we're kind of trained to think in a certain way. And, kind of trains us so that by the time, you graduate college and you're out of the school system, then you're far less, apt to use that part of your brain, that creativity. So if you have somebody that's in your, you know, team or business dynamic, that's something EQIQs does. Is it points out, hey, this person has essentially like a personality default or predisposition to want to be more creative, and maybe give those people some, hey, what are your suggestions, or what do you think about this? And it segregates out, oh, these people might be better at influencing. Hey, why don't you, we'd love to see if you'd want to volunteer to take on this project and kind of lead it out and see how this develops, and it kind of goes to your point, because I think efficiency comes from not only just the numbers, but also the personalities. How can you optimize your system, your people system? So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, there was a guy. There was I forget his name now. He was the CEO of a. He got a lot of press. You would know what I'm going to talk about. He was the CEO of a startup, and he fired the HR department because he said they were creating more problems than they were solving. And then all he did was change the name and started hiring some people along. They called it people management, and which is it's the same thing.
yeah,
And but really what he didn't really understand. I mean, he was right in the fact that there are problems, but he didn't focus on the right problem, because it's just he didn't solve a problem with it. Because HR is there to help develop your people, help to hire the right people. So if you're not hiring the right people, there's a systemic problem. It's not necessarily the HR department. There's a systemic problem on what you're trying to go for. Like, what type of person are you trying to go for? And CEOs walk around, well, I want a person who can do this, and I want a person who can do this. I'll never forget. There was, there was a, there was a, there was a job description out. This was about 10 years ago. Okay, where maybe it was a little bit longer, maybe it was 12 years ago, where they wanted 15 years of experience doing social media.
oh
Social
wow,
media didn't exist for 15 years before they had that out there. Somebody was like, I want 15 years of social media experience. Or, you're like, what is
good
wrong?
luck.
And they got beat up on it on LinkedIn, but I mean, it's just ridiculous sometimes. So I think you're 100% right. Diving deeper into a personality of what somebody is qualified to do or how somebody thinks is probably a better way to hire.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, we also give suggestions on like, hey, this is your, your team makeup, and maybe this area could be, kind of like what you were saying about your prior company. You could have a bunch of people that think in a particular way on your team, and then there's all your gaps. You have a bunch of gaps, and blind spots essentially. So like bringing into the fact of, okay, moms a lot of times do the grocery shopping, and that perspective was not being brought into the decision making, and so therein lied the gap. And so the people on the team makeup is actually very important as well, to see that balance. So yeah, so it's not just about obviously communication and skills and what do I want, but yeah, that total balance of, okay, are we seeing it from every perspective? Are we able to tackle this situation in a way that's not skewed? Yeah, so
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. So who is your target client for this? Who is the target user for this? Is it small businesses? Is it SMBs? Is it enterprise? Is it both? Can everybody use it?
yeah, I mean, we basically consider ourselves software a SaaS company. So we all of it. We have a API plugin, for anybody that wants to do white label or integrate into whatever they're doing. We obviously have the platform. We have enterprise level that scales a lot of large businesses as well. But essentially, anybody that's looking to, there's all kinds of use cases. Anybody that's looking to improve their decision making for their team and for their personal life. So obviously, regular everyday people, that, hey, my sister and I, for example, are very different. You could put us in two separate rooms, ask us the same question, and we'll usually give you opposite answers across the board, politics, you name it. But we agree to disagree. But it's great because it gives you suggestions on like, okay, well, I want to, we have this like, coach. Hey, I want to bring up this topic and I'm not really sure how she'll be most receptive to me. Here's my scenario. And then it kind of says, okay, well, this is, you should approach it like this. Or, if, hey, this person's not getting back to me, in the way that I would expect them to get back to me, do I need to communicate in a different way so that I get my, objective met? Or is this just, are they being rude, or is just this the way that they communicate with me? So, I'd say all of the above. Anybody that's looking for, I guess, to know about themselves better and how to communicate with those around them.
Right. So anybody can use the platform. They're just paying on a per use basis, or is it, a staged or a scaled payment?
Yeah, it's a tier. So obviously, an individual would have less tools, right? Because they wouldn't have the need for some of the business tools. And then the businesses have, group pairings. And we have this thing called Smart Match, where I think it was really, we implemented it for one of our consultants or consultant firms, where you essentially, they had over 100 consultants and, multiple different, I guess, companies that they want to say, okay, well, obviously the skill sets line up for this particular job, but does their personality align with the team that they're going to work closely with? So yeah, it's definitely based on tier and what you would need from it. So.
Yeah, gotcha. So, and how's it going? How long have you been out there?
Actually, about 6 months, not too long. We're just kind of, this whole time we've been doing a lot of, I guess, iterations. So I thought it was great. And then, I keep getting feedback and I'm like, oh, now I want to add this and I want to add that. And this is so wonderful, just refinement. And I'm a big advocate of constructive feedback, because that's the only way that you're going to know. Right. And so, so I continue to refine it and push it out. And so you always see, hey, what's new? What cool thing is happening here that is a new tool that can be useful to me in different ways.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, no, it's very exciting, and I'm very passionate about it. I feel like you know, you just I don't know. It's definitely helped me in my own personal life as well. I guess to understand people better, and I guess have more empathy for. I'm like, okay, well, I'm expecting people in general to respond the same way as me, and I think that my initial approach on that was a very skewed view of the world, but you don't know how to perceive it like somebody else because you're you, right? So I was going into situations sometimes being like, well, why are they behaving this way? And that doesn't make sense. That's very odd behavior. And it was just like, I'd sit there and I'd mull over it in my head over and over. I'm like, this is exhausting at times. Whereas now I can just be like, oh, okay, so this makes sense now. This They just digest things differently than me, or they communicate different, or maybe they want to be appreciated in a different way. And so it's definitely helped me in a lot of different ways.
That's great. Yeah, you can be your own guinea pig, so to speak.
Yeah.
So when we were looking at your background, we read that you were on uh, Millionaire Matchmaker.
Yes, that was super fun. That was super fun. Yes, Patty Stanger. Yeah, she
What was
is.
that, what was that for?
So it was at the time I was doing a different project, but it was also for to become a matchmaker. So I feel like all aspects of my background added something to where I'm at today. And but if you look at it, it's kind of all over the place, right? So I initially started out, in finance in New York, and then working at hedge fund and then a fund of funds. And then I went into management consulting. I even did some work with the Federal Reserve, Thomson Reuters, different places like that. And so, okay, this is a great path. But then, learning about all these different companies and understanding, okay, well, here's what's missing and here's the gaps. And then I was like, okay, well, that's fascinating. But then I guess I've always been interested in that, I guess the technology, and the human behavior aspect of things. So, when I was initially starting out into entrepreneurship, I dipped my toe into the dating app space, learned lots. And that was that was part of my learning process, and also fun experience. Engaging and becoming a matchmaker. So, and in this way, with regards to EQIQs, that's essentially what we're doing here too, but in obviously a much more technical way, where it can put numbers to paper, and we're matching people based off of whatever role that they're interested in. Business, you can toggle it if you're an individual to romantic, friendship. We even actually have a community section on there where, okay, this is who I am. We're trying to encourage authenticity. I think the culture today, people go out there and they're like, oh, this is the persona that I think other people want me to be. And you have all these I guess versions of them that they're trying to live up to, and it's just, what results is that individual is just not very happy. And it's because they've been attracting the kind of people that don't really resonate with them. So whereas this allows them to be like, okay, this is who I am, and it'll show different compatibility scores. So you can go find people, in the community section, and it says, hey, this person, here's the compatibility score. Maybe you want to reach out to them, and you can do that. So and if you're just looking for friendship, hey, I moved to a new area and I want to meet other people that, I might vibe with, that's an option too.
There's a great marketer. Her name is Sally Hogshead, and she she was a great strategist, great marketing strategist, but she sort of transitioned to helping people figure out what makes them different and celebrate their difference. And she has a whole system for you. You put in your information. It's not trying to match you with anybody. It's not compatibility. It's just about you and understanding who you are so that you can figure out how to be, how to celebrate your difference essentially. And it's good. I think it's a great tool that she built.
Yeah, I think personality assessments are definitely helpful, right? For self-love, self-awareness, all kinds of great things. And obviously we have on the platform where you can, if you already know like your Myers-Briggs, your Enneagram, your DISC, you can plug it in there. If you don't, you can take a short quiz, 2 to 5 minutes, whatever, and refine it if you need to, of figuring out what my type might be. And that's kind of like the quizzes / personality assessments. So you can kind of learn all about yourself across 21 different frameworks. But I really feel like with our platform, what's extremely helpful is that we kind of bring all that together and make it into relationship intelligence. Okay, so now I learned about myself. How do I go out in the world and use this on a daily basis? How do I interact with my neighbor, my friend, my boss, my kids, my colleagues? Like making it actionable and helping you make, it helps you make obviously decisions. Okay, I want to put something in. Here's my scenario. How do I get through this, or how do I approach this topic? I want to have this uncomfortable conversation. How do I best get to the result that I'm looking for, given my personality and the other person's personality? So, and I think that's really what it comes down to is not only understanding yourself and having that self-love and that confidence, but also like applying it in a real world way that obviously for businesses saves a lot of money, and for personal, you can go out and have more fulfilling relationships.
I alluded in the intro that had a great story about this and about compatibility with founders and co-founders, and I talk about this when I speak with entrepreneurs about being careful who you get as your co-founder, because
It's like a marriage. It's like a marriage.
it's like a marriage, but it's sometimes it's even deeper than that, and because you're with each other for so much. But more importantly, understanding who that person is really, because it's not about how that person reacts when things are good. It's about how
Hmm.
that person reacts when things get difficult, and which is very similar to a
They're
marriage.
tested. They're tested.
So we had this business after we were in the beauty business, and we built a brand with a woman named Carol Alt. She was a model back in the '80s, and she became a raw foodist, and we built this beauty products line around her. And she was great, and we went on the shopping channels all around the world. On the shopping channels, we were in Sephora, Ulta, we were everywhere. But it was difficult because we were very remote at the time when remote work wasn't like
Mm.
a big deal. And so we had to, deal with manufacturer was, in Florida, and then we had, our people in different places, and we were constantly on the road promoting and doing shows. And that was really how, we did things. And we had a website, and we were selling on Amazon. So it's a lot of coordination from being on the road. And things got difficult
Hmm.
because sales are great, but sometimes you need capital to feed those sales. And when sales come in fast and you don't have the capital to feed those sales,
Mm.
you've got to struggle to get that capital at the same time as work it. So
Quite the juggle.
it is quite the juggle. So I had a co-founder that just couldn't handle it. It was great in the first 3 years when things were going well and we were building and we were going, and then all of that started, and it was so disastrous that he would send emails to Carol yelling at her and screaming at her. Now that she's not only a co-founder, but she's also the face of the brand. She's the
Mm.
one that's going out there talking about this. Without Carol, talking about this, you don't really have anything.
Yeah.
And she so you don't want to aggravate her. You
Mm-mm.
want her in a good
Chop
frame of
off your
mind.
nose to spite your face or something like that they
Yeah.
say.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then he would send things to her management, and he would send things to. So then we needed capital, and so I started, talking to investors, and it wasn't difficult to get people's attention because we were selling. We
Yeah,
were we weren't a startup anymore. I mean, we were still, a young
you're
company,
growing. You're growing.
but we had purchase orders, and we had sales, and we had all kinds of things, but it was just time consuming. And every time that we would have a meeting with somebody, whether it was remotely or whether it was, in person, he would just he would blow it up to the point where I'd be sitting there going, I can't believe, I don't even know what the hell just happened. And and there I am trying to pick up the pieces and build the relationship again. I mean, it was the most ridiculous,
Destructive. Very destructive.
it was the most ridiculous thing you ever saw. And what it really was he couldn't handle the success. He couldn't handle what was happening. And so he didn't, because of that, he would rather blow everything up than allow himself to walk away. All he had to do was come to us and say, I can't do it. I need, and we would have said, good, here, you take care of this. You take care of talking to the, manufacturer. You take care of, making sure the product gets on, whatever it is, just stay out of everything else. And we would have been able to handle it because we had other investors involved. And I mean, it just got to the point where nobody could handle it. It got into a serious legal issue.
Mm.
More importantly, more importantly, a couple of years down the road, he was still there, not involved in everyday. We had to take him out of everyday activity, but he was still there, and he was still sending out like destructive emails to people and all kinds of things. And it came time,
What was he doing that was actually productive? My goodness.
nothing, and we were fine with that. We were fine with like, no, don't
You're
worry
like,
about
just go vacation. Just
it. Yeah,
go do
just
anything
get
else.
the hell out of here. But he would still send emails, and people just wouldn't read them. They would just delete them, and just,
Oh,
it was
wow.
it was really insane. It was really,
That's
really
probably really
insane.
bad for morale as well.
Oh yeah, but we shielded people from it. It was just directed at, like, the investors and people like me and Carol and stuff. But the worst part came a couple of years down the road when because he was still a shareholder, when we had an offer to be acquired, and it wound up he wound up just getting in the middle of it and just turning it into a disastrous thing that cost the valuation of the company to plummet. And
Oh,
people
no.
were like, I don't want to get involved with this. And we were like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, it was just, it really literally cost us millions of dollars. And
Oh,
he
that's
was,
heart-wrenching. Heart-wrenching.
he, he was a disaster. And still to this day, we won't mention his name when we talk. Like, the people that were involved in that company, we don't mention his name. We just refer to him in a very specific way. Um, but then, we got through all that. We got past it. We nobody ever spoke to him, again. And about 4 or 5 years later, we blocked him from everything, personally, we blocked him. 4 or 5 years later, he sends me a text from a different number, and wants to get together. I'm like looking at it, like, there's no way I want you back in my life.
You're like,
It
no, thank you.
was the
Good
most it
luck.
was the most bizarre event I've ever been through in my life. And so from then on, I really, and whenever I get involved with people, whether it's investors or whether it's you know I don't want to say co-founders, but people at a high level within the company,
Hmm.
I really do spend some time with. We have a company that we use to talk to them and see what kind of personalities they are, because I can never go through that again. And when you're as much as investors, when they talk to people like entrepreneurs, they're evaluating you more so than the business, right?
Hmm.
Because they always say, investors have always said this to me, I'd rather have an A player with a B product than a B player with an A product, because an A player can take that B product and elevate it. But a B player, he's going to take an A product and turn it into a B product. So, you
So
know,
true.
pardon?
I said that's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
But I spend a lot of time, if somebody wants to get involved in a company that I'm involved in, as an investor, I'll spend more time interviewing them than they're interviewing me because I don't want anybody on my
You're like,
team
I'm not doing this
anymore.
again.
Do not do it again. You know, I'm not going to have anybody like sending nasty emails. It was the actually the worst event I've ever experienced in business. It was the hardest thing to get through.
Yeah, and we actually have a tab that's co-founder fit
Yeah,
for just that because that's a big decision. And
absolutely.
and think about all that money you could have saved, right? Had you either chosen somebody who was more aligned with you or just not, gotten into that dynamic in the first place.
Well, yeah, there's no question. It's. I think you have to be very careful because what winds up happening when you have a co-founder is they have a significant stake in the business, and it's really difficult to get rid of them. It's not like just having an investor or having somebody that you gave shares to, founder shares or whatever. It gets difficult, and especially when they don't want to play. And I mean, they're just just a mental stress of getting email after email after email after email, and you're going, what in the world is going on with this? And and trying to disassociate. But yeah, it's damaging. It's very, very damaging.
Yeah. Yeah, for you too, because you had to obviously juggle the business as well, right? You had to juggle the business and all the problems that were going on with the business. You had to juggle the people around you and mitigating those relationships with regards to him, and then also dealing with him on top of it. So for every situation, you had three problems to have to deal with.
Oh, more. I also had to deal with Carol and her management, because she was still a model, and it was up to me to go with her to the shopping channels all around and do the shows and get her from point A to point B. We did a PR thing where we went across Canada, we went across the United States, and it was she and I and her manager the whole time, and she's going nuts because she's getting these emails, and it's like, so you're dealing with this personality, right, who's also the face of your brand, who's out there actively selling, who's passionate about what she's selling. She's not just a paid spokesperson. This is her business as much as everybody else's. And she's never experienced anything like that. She's like, what the heck is going on? And her manager's, coming to me going, you got to get him under control. I'm like, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm sure you learned now you have to hold hands before you get married, at least.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You got to hold hands before you get married. I think you got to do more
So,
than hold
they
hands before
say,
you get married.
if you're in an intimate relationship, you got to go get your paperwork. Well, this is the version of the paperwork, right? Yeah, let's see at least the friction areas and how would we handle that? And let's run through some scenarios and how would you respond or what's your initial thought on this?
Yeah.
Right? Because yeah, when people they say, okay, well, you really show your true colors when you're put under pressure, and sometimes like your prior co-founder, he just couldn't handle it. Okay, well, then that's fine, but then let's figure that out ahead of time. Let's adjust this equity distribution according to output or something, right? You got to
Well,
think
it's
about all
actually
that.
it actually turned out to be some sort of a personality disorder where their people are so afraid of failure that they can't handle success, and they don't want anybody else to be successful. So they try and drag everybody down.
It's almost like self-sabotage,
It
but in
is very
business,
much self sabotage.
right?
Yeah,
Huh.
and so it was. Yeah, man, it was insanity.
That sounds like quite the
Yeah,
ride.
I've had. Let me tell you, man. I've had some really really interesting things happen to me over my lifetime with business. Like I started my first business at 27. It was not good. It was a disaster. Not because of the business itself. The core concept was great. The store was busy. I was a terrible leader, terrible process manager, and all that stuff.
You're
And I've
speaking
talked
so highly of yourself. Keep going. I'm just kidding.
no, no, I've talked enough about it, and so, and then I went to grad school and I got involved with another company, made an investment, helped that company grow, and I really understood what my flaws were from doing that. And then obviously from there, but I've had some losses over the years because I've gotten involved in things that I shouldn't get involved in, and I understand myself and I understand who I am and what I do and why I do it. So I've been through some craziness in my life, but never anything to that extent. Never anything to that extent. That was insanity. Um,
Well, I
and
think you could control some of the other things, right? You were in control of something, but a person's personality,
no,
right? You
can't
can't
control that.
you can't read it on a resume.
No.
You can't control it and mitigate it. It's not numbers you can put on a paper. I mean, in general. So now, obviously, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help mitigate some of those personality risks, like you would for, a lot of times at in corporate, they have it where, oh, you have your 90-day trial kind of thing. And
Yeah.
that's basically what this is, right? Okay, we're going to see how you fit with the rest of us. Are you a team player? In more ways than one, right? Are we going to have, some friction that we're going to have to deal with those 3 times the problems by you just being here. Okay, you're great at your job, but I'd rather, like you're saying, have somebody who, can learn more and their personality be more aligned than somebody that is not.
Yeah. Well, I think alignment. I think you just said hit on a key note, and I tell entrepreneurs this as well. You hear people say, "Oh, you always want to hire people that are smarter than you," and I think that's bull. You want to hire people that have the same alignment as you, because if you
Mhm.
hire people that are smarter than you, then you got a bunch of smart people walking around talking to themselves because they don't know what the hell they're doing. But if you have people that are all aligned in the same vision of where you want to get to, that you can work with. And so I think that's sort of what you're looking for when you do these types of personality tests. And, I've seen a lot of people who went in and BS their way into being a team player, and then they get in there and they're horrible, so I
It
think
reminds
it's,
me, yeah, no, sorry, I didn't mean to stop you, but it reminds me of this, I guess, analogy of these two people trying to get a table through a door. Do you know this one? Where
no,
they're trying to get a table through the door, and person A is like, "Yeah, I'm pushing really hard and putting all this effort," and person B is like, "Yeah, me too," and it's just not going. But both of them, were pushing towards each other
right,
rather than one direction or the other. And so
right,
obviously the table was going nowhere, right?
right, right.
So being aligned, okay, we're, on three, we're going to push from, this direction towards this goal. You got to have, that alignment, right? So two people working towards the same goal, ideally at the same pace, in a similar fashion. Okay, this is what we're doing, and we're on
Yeah,
the same page. Yes. So
yeah, yeah. No,
this is very
100%.
important.
100%. I think it's, I think personality assessments on any level, or, finding the right fit, any tool that you can use to do it, even in a startup. I mean, it's not expensive these days to do it, even in a startup, because people think, oh, it's a startup, so I'll worry about hiring the right people later. But the reality is, that gets you into trouble when you start to scale, because then
Mhm.
you have these people that are embedded in the culture or embedded in the company that have been there for a long time, and then it becomes a difficult decision to say these aren't the right people. A classic example is Larry Ellison and Oracle. I mean, in the early 90s, it was not the size that it is now, but he scaled up to a certain level. I can't remember if it was 100 million or 200 million, but then he realized that all the people that were with him were the wrong people. And
Hmm.
he had to make a really difficult decision because he was going backwards and he was losing money, and it almost cost him the company. He had
Oh
to get rid of
no.
everybody. And
Wow.
that's what happens. I see it in startups all the time, where they hire people early on and those are good people, and they got me from here to here and I have to keep them. Well, you don't.
Well, they don't have loyalty during my grandmother's time, right? It's a very different time that we're in, right? So finding, okay, you're not going to expect somebody to be with you in general for 15, 20, or their entire lifetime
Right.
at the same company. Realistically, maybe back then, but it's different now, right? People want to grow their resume and get more skill sets, but yeah, I mean, there's to some aspect, if you're you're building a culture, yeah, there's initial people, very imperative. Okay, well, what does this set the stage for? And, if they're, is this person that I'm hiring on, are they open to feedback and innovation? If not, then, the next person they train, for example, they're, okay, this is how you do it, and that's it. This is the only way. There's no interest in efficiency or improvement, right? Or even communication. Okay, well, maybe all of the communication is all via email, right? Versus, oh, let's even had a phone call every so often and discuss these points. Like, it sounds like you loved those team meetings that you did. I'm just kidding. No, but I was going to go back to like finding the people that you can that communicate in a complementary way. Like even Access HQ reported that I guess a full-time person working at a company lost 35 working days in just poor communication, which is a lot of money. And now you multiply that by every employee at the company, right? So that business is losing a lot of money. So if you improve, okay, at least the self-awareness and compatibility of the people on your team, okay, this reduces that cost and reduces those days of lost productivity, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that I remember that when I was still at the supermarket company, and the new CEO came in, he brought in this guy, I forget his name, but he did this personality assessment of everybody, and you got this little graph that you put on your
Oh
desk
gosh.
supposedly, and it had told you like what your strengths and weaknesses were and how you communicate, right? And mine was very just what you would think, very type A, like, I focus on the problem and the focus on the solution, and I don't really care about the don't come in, I'm not going to lunch. This is the problem
So
you
much
just
for camaraderie. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, exactly. This is the problem you just presented me with. Now we're going to sit here and fix it. And then, I don't really care about dinner or going to lunch or any of that stuff. We're going to fix it. So,
Hmm.
and you just, it is the way I am, and with the people that we hire now in the agency, I tell them all what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. So
Yeah.
that, if I was good at what you did, I wouldn't need you, but I'm not.
Right.
This is what I'm good at. Don't expect anything more from me than this.
Yes.
you know don't pay attention to my emails, just pay attention to the substance, because I don't do the hi Michelle, how are you today. I don't I forget to do it. It's like, I answer the email, you ask me the question, I answer the email, and some people take that really, really like, is he mad?
Right.
No, I'm not
But
mad.
it's your communication style,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So and it's good that you put that disclaimer out there. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, because you can't take it personal. That's just who you are. You're trying to get things done. You're trying to be efficient with your time, and that's your focus, and that's it.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. I can't. I don't have. I don't have time for all that. No.
I know. I mean, it's so funny because I get focused on something, and then that's like all I do. And so a lot of times I have like hundreds of I guess I'm a little guilty of voicemails, because everybody knows I don't listen to voicemail.
Oh boy.
I'm just like, I'm one of those. I know I can't help. I'm like, I'm gonna sit here. I'm like, if it's important, you'll text me. But hopefully, what you do is you email me, because at least I can mark as unread. Because if I'm multitasking or something and I get distracted, then that text might just poof disappear. But if the people that around me know, okay, if I really want something done or I need to talk to Jessica, I gotta email her. That's just me.
Oh yeah, I do much better with email. I can't stand people who try to do business over text. It doesn't work for me. I prefer, either getting on a call, getting on a video call, or an email. I can't deal with text in business. I can deal with one or two texts, but don't sit there and start like going back and forth about the problem. I can't do it on text.
No.
I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
So
I'd rather have a call scheduled so I can mentally prepare and be like, okay, I'm going to give my 100% in this call. But if somebody calls me up and I pick up the phone and then they start talking about something, I'm like, I feel like a ghost just jumped out from behind the door, and I'm like, I don't know, my brain freezes, and I'm like, now what?
yeah,
But if people,
exactly.
like you were saying, if people don't know that about your personality, you might come across as a little quirky, or just that you communicate in a very different way, and they might take that personal, and that's not what you're trying to do.
No,
So surrounding yourself by people that, one, understand, kind of like how you work best, two, that alignment, that vision, and three, that are interested in communicating in a way that you can obviously meet your best objectives, which it
no,
doesn't sound like your prior founder did.
no.
So
So, so how do people find you?
they just go to EQIQs.com. It's emotional quotient, intellectual quotient, plural, s.com. So EQIQs.com.
Okay. And then social, they're all EQIQS.com
Yep,
or
pretty much.
EQIQS,
Yep, we're on Instagram and all the good stuff, X, and I
TikTok,
guess TikTok. Yeah, all the good stuff. Facebook.
all EQIQ.
Yes, yes. So
Okay, cool. All
yeah,
right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for taking the time. This was
this is
fun.
fun. I agree. Chinks. No.
So yeah, it was fun. It was fun talking about it. And so I think that the biggest takeaway is that talent alone doesn't build a successful company. You can assemble a room full of brilliant people, which like I said, but if they can't communicate, they can't trust one another, they can't work through conflict, then talent becomes, I don't know, expensive friction, something like that. So,
Mhm.
check out EQIQS.com, EQIQS.com. And if you have any questions, get in touch with Jessica and she'll walk you through it.
Yeah, I do want to throw out a promo code. Um, I guess
Go ahead.
VIPU. Put your
VIPYOU.
yes, put yourself first, and you know, build your business and be successful. So
I will put that in the description, VIPYOU, so that you all see it as the code. Thanks again, and I
thank you.
appreciate it. And we will be back next week with more great guests.